Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Shadowrun Dragonfall. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you're chose to join me today as we find out if our little excursion into the sewers was an actual mission or not. Blitz's eyes widen when he sees the drone that you're carrying. He looks anxious. Hey Chief, well, how's it going? Yeah, I found this drone in that vault, in that hotel vault. Does it belong to you? Yeah, Chief, that's mine. I didn't want to say anything at the time, since it was my idea to have you loot the vault in the first place. What was it doing in there? It's my personal drone. Good for to have something to hide behind when you're on a solo decking run, you know? Lester took it from me when she realized, or when she seized control of the Schwarze Herzen. I'd been hoping to get it back ever since. I've got to say, Chief, it hurts me to see her all banged up to hell like she was. Looked like Lester had a few of her goons take turns on my baby with a baseball bat. But it looks like you've got her up and running again. How'd you manage that? Yeah, Mallet fixed the drone. She says that it won't listen to anyone but you, though. Score. So, can I have it back? Sure. It's no use to me, anyway. And now he's also the other thing that controls drones, not just a decker. Blitz stubs out his cigarette at your approach. Edie, I was hoping I'd see you. Do you have another run lined up for us yet? I'm strapped for cash. Don't worry, we're doing fine on the job front. Amzel's been working overtime. Oh, thank God, and thank you, Chief. Thank Paul, too, come to think of it. So, do you have a question for me, or was this a social call? Why are you so strapped for cash? With all the work we've been doing, you should be rolling in Nuyen. What can I say, Chief? He tries on a thoroughly unconvincing smile, but immediately seems to think better of it. The anxious look returns to his face. I have expensive tastes, he says. How expensive are we talking here? Even if you had a raging cram habit, I think you'd have at least some money left. Expensive. Truth be told, I'm in debt. In debt? To whom? He hesitates before responding, and when he does, his voice carries an edge of annoyance. No offense, but that's gotten a little too personal, Chief. My debts are none of your business. Well, if some bookie sends his thugs here looking for you, it's going to become my business. So, this is an aggressive option. So talk now is the end of that sentence. This one, they're all aggressive. They're all pretty tough. Let's go with this one then. The first one. Blitz shakes his head in exasperation. All right, fine. First off, you don't need to worry about anyone coming after me. My debts are a bunch of old contacts. If I don't pay them, I'm gonna lose them. And in this line of work, it isn't smart to burn bridges. Second, before you ask, those debts are for services rendered. I was in a tight spot. I needed some help, and I threw around a lot of IOUs to get it. Third, and finally, the trouble I was in involved the girl. I'll tell you about it if you ask me to, but we're verging deep into personal feelings territory, so if you don't want to hear me sob over my ex-girlfriend, you drop the subject now. So, it's up to you, Chief. You really want to go down this road, or shall we keep this relationship professional? You're clearly preoccupied with this. In our line of work, preoccupied can get you killed, so yeah, spit it out, and we'll deal with it. Blitz meets your gaze for a moment, and then looks away and sighs. Alright, where to begin? I met Emily in Dragonkeeper. She was the first person who was ever more important to me than myself. I was crazy about her, Chief. To this day, she's the only person I've ever met who could out-deck me. And the real kicker is that she wasn't even a decker by trade. There was nothing she wasn't good at. I like to dabble in rigging, but Emily? That girl could pick up anything that she set her mind to. Sounds like a hell of a girl. She was. She made things right. No matter how stupid I was, no matter what I got myself into, she made it right. I don't think much of many people, Chief. Emotional attachments aren't really my thing. Love seems like a diluted word these days. So I won't waste it on Emily. Let's just say that she was important to me. And then I lost her. I didn't know what was happening. It came out of nowhere. One day, she was just gone, along with most of my decking gear. The only explanation was a handwritten note on an old-fashioned paper. Leave me alone. That was it. We'd been together for years, and that was all she left me. That and this beat-up old cyber deck. Naturally, I freaked out. We'd had our share of arguments, but we'd never had a huge blowout or anything. I couldn't think of anything that'd drive her to do a thing like that. Mostly, I felt hurt, so I searched for her in the real world and in the Matrix, and when that turned up nothing, I started tapping my contacts, and that was when I started racking up debt. Oh. And so, did you find her? No, she's gone, Edie. Without a trace. I looked high, I looked low, I poked into everything I could think of. My contacts did the same. She's gone, Chief. At this point, I've accepted that, but I still have to repay those debts. I feel for you, man. But you're right. Best to leave the past in the past. Pay your debts and move on. Yeah, you're right. Of course. Thanks for the talk, Chief. As you approach Blitz, he gives you an easy smile. Hey, Chief, what's up? Any thoughts about that last run you'd like to share? Nah, nothing we haven't talked about, Chief. Talk to you later, Blitz. I think he's referring to... this is great. I think he's referring to the other run where he got his nephew. That's why he says nothing we haven't talked about. Hiccup. I'm sorry. Because he specifically talked to me about it. Hey, Dante, what's up? You look down to see a pair of bright eyes set into a scruffy face looking back up at you. Dante, Monica's old dog. Looking down, you pet him. And now he's happy. Because he wasn't before. Well, he's never going to be happy because Monica died. So that's just how it goes. Glory, No, Eiger wasn't with me in that one run. She was on the last mission. But if that wasn't a mission, let's find out. As you approach, Eiger turns to face you. Her rifle has been field stripped and is lying in pieces on a sheet of butcher paper. Arranged in a neat row along the edge of the paper are bottles of copper solvent, bore cleaner, and lighter fluid. Our fearless leader returns. What do you need? I'd like to hear about your time in the KSK. She shakes her head. No, I'm not in the habit of sharing war stories, Edie. Not with people who have never served. What, you think I wouldn't understand? No, it isn't that. You've been under fire before. You'd get it. But I don't share war stories with civilians. You may be a Shadowrunner, but you were never a soldier. Well, it doesn't have to be a war story. I just want a better idea of who I'm running with. She looks you in the eye for a moment, evaluating, and finally she shrugs. All right, Edie, you win. I owe everything to my time in the KSK. From, that's probably the German army or something. I just don't know what it stands for. From my street name on down. So you tell me what you want to know, and we'll see where this goes. Tell me how you got your street name. Back when I was in basic training, a fellow recruit made a vulgar joke at my expense. He said that I reminded him of the north face of the Eiger in the Bernese Alps. Huge and beautiful, but dangerous to climb. His tone left little doubt as to what sort of climbing he had in mind. I think that he was trying to proposition me in his clumsy way, poking me in front of other recruits to try to provoke a reaction. Anyway, he got one. I broke 3 of his ribs, and the name stuck. Remind me not to proposition you. A frown crosses her face. Either you're trying to be cute, she says, or you're completely missed the point. Neither would surprise me. I was trying to be cute. And why would that not surprise you? But what would have been the point? I don't know what the point would be of that story. I mean, apart from don't humiliate her, obviously. Yeah. I didn't break his ribs because he propositioned me, Edie. I'm a goddamn savage. I'm not a goddamn savage, she says. I put that recruit down because he demeaned me, and he did it in front of our peers. Yeah, that's what I said. And... Calm down, Eiger. I was just joking is a line that is meant to not demean her, but to diminish what she feels or how she feels about that obviously very formative experience. So this is an interesting line over here because it feels like it would be the continuation of what I said before. You know, just sort of like the tone and stuff like that. But it is, and it's written interestingly because it is indeed still missing the point. And so you got angry and you attacked him. That about right? Yeah, it is. And I had a damn good reason to be angry. If you can't see that, you're even more clueless than I thought. One way or another, I was getting saddled with the name Eiger. As soon as that idiot made his little joke, it was a foregone conclusion. My only choice in the matter was whether it happened under his terms or under mine. If I hadn't broken that twit's ribs, that name Eiger would have meant a difficult sexual context to a whole barracks full of recruits. That's what I would have been to them from that point on. Thanks to what I did, my new name meant the troll who doesn't take shit from anyone instead. Tell me, Edie, which would you rather be? Well, obviously the second one, but I'm trying to think. It wouldn't matter to me either way what that would mean to her, because I'm not choosing that option. It's a little bit of the diminishing of her experience again. It's not like it's not that it could be that it wouldn't be the case, or it's not that this is a false statement that it wouldn't matter to me, and it's not that that she's any worse or any better for actually having that matter, because obviously it matters. And actually, in case of Edie, the circumstances would be very different. For it not to matter to Edie, and for it not to matter to her, the fact that she's a woman and Edie is a man would also change that. At least a little bit. I don't think... I'm pretty sure this setting doesn't have equality and stuff like that, and just sort of like women are still subject to sexism and stuff. So yeah. The second one, I'm sorry, you did the right thing. Yeah, that's what I probably should have said before. I didn't have the option to say I'm sorry the moment she called me out on my bullshit. Whenever she said, the moment she said, it's trying to be cute. And I'm like, yes, I am. I'm sorry. Because, yeah. Damn right I did. Out in the field, nothing will kill you faster than losing the respect of your team. I'd remember that if I were you. And that's good advice anywhere. Out in the field or here in the shadows. Well, actually, I kind of wonder if the first one is a good option. The first option is, you know, Eiger, by that logic, I should have broken your ribs after Monica died. Let's see what she says with that. That's an interesting option. Because this one is still buttering. It feels a little bit like buttering her up. And also it feels like her. This doesn't apply to everybody's experience and to all places on Earth. It does apply definitely in the army. Well, I say having never been in the army, despite being a colonel. But I suppose it is okay to see this as applying to the army as well as to the shadows. If you lose the respect of your team, but there are people who you can count on without the respect. There are people who are selfless or who are responsible or who are just sort of like honorable, I guess is a way of putting it, even though it's not necessarily the correct way of putting it, but you could use it for some people. But you can find yourself in a situation where nobody respects you, but your well-being is still accounted for and people still care, even though they don't respect you. It just depends. You know, in very competitive settings, that definitely becomes less and less of a reality. And that's why it's not necessarily good advice anywhere. And that's why this feels a little bit like buttering her up. I'm going to go with this one because it's interesting, more than because this one is not interesting. I'm going to go with the first one. You know, Eiger, by that logic, I should have broken your ribs after Monica died. In your place, I would have. She looks you up and down, appraising you. Not that you'd have succeeded if you'd tried, but in terms of saving face, it would have done wonders. In all seriousness, Edie, I'm sorry that I put you in that position. I shouldn't have, and I acknowledge that. She straightens. Need anything else, or can I get back to prepping for our next run? No, tell me about your team. Fair enough. I guess you've earned it. There were 8 of us. 2 commando squads working together as a single unit. Schmidt and Lang, were command deckers. Wolf was our rigger and combat engineer. Fisher handled demolitions. Braun was a medic. And the rest of us, Metzger, Kruger, and myself, were weapons experts. Our mission was extraterritorial. Technically illegal, but important enough to justify the risk. We'd been sent across the border into Poland. The Russian mafia had set up a cottage industry in human trafficking all along the Oder-Nesa line, and it was our job to disrupt it. So if we had security etiquette, we'd have been able to know more of this stuff. That sounds more like a police action than a military operation. Kind of interesting. Go on. We were a good team, experienced. We went through a lot together, and we chalked up a lot of kills. In our own way, I'd like to think that we did some good. Who was in command? Metzger, best leader I've ever had the pleasure of serving under. Her face clouds. He was a hell of a man. But he went down with the rest of the team. Everyone but me. What happened to the team? She shakes her head. No, that's one story I won't be telling. They died. That's all that you need to know. Thanks, Eiger. So, was there something else that you wanted to talk about, or can I get back to cleaning my rifle? Yes, any thoughts about that last run? Nothing we haven't talked about. Oh, maybe she is talking about the sewer run. She turns back to the disassembled components of her rifle. Sure thing, fearless leader. Good talk. And I think we're not ruining everything or anything by not talking to them every single time. I'm pretty sure it's okay to that we went into the sewers without talking to them before. Because I don't think we talked to them before going to the sewers. Glory, what's up? For the first time since you met her, Glory's expression seems to brighten. It's subtle, but it's there. You're sure of it. Edie, a pleasure as always. Need anything from me? Yeah, how are you doing, Glory? Golden, as always, Edie. No problem here. Any thoughts about that last run? Nope, Edie. Nothing right now. Interesting, isn't it? She wasn't in the sewer run. Well, if I didn't know any better, I think you were warming up to me. I'm gonna say that because it's the only option I have to reply to the fact that she seems to be brightening up. She studies your face for a moment before responding. I suppose that you might say that. I don't talk to many people, Edie. It just doesn't seem to be worth the effort. I don't really feel much anymore. Not since this. And she caresses the chrome on her forearm with a hand made of articulated steel. If that's true, why are you still talking to me? I suppose because you've shown an interest, and because you haven't let me push you away? She locks eyes with you. Her expression is blank. I don't want to mislead you, Edie. I still don't feel anything. Not warmth, or friendship, or even trust. But I can appreciate the effort you're making. It's something new. It's worthy of exploring. You said that things went bad when you turned 14? I'd like to keep talking about that. No, I'd rather not. She stares at you, her face expressionless. Why not? Because I don't see a reason to. The memories are unpleasant, and dredging them up doesn't serve any real purpose. Well, you're wrong about that. The last time we talked, it had an impact on you. That's reason enough to continue. She pauses a moment to consider your words, a troubled look on her face. I suppose that's true. Feeling discomfort is better than feeling nothing at all. Alright, here's the deal, Edie. I'm going to talk. You listen. When I'm done, I'm done. No complaints, no arguments, and we'll see what happens. Deal? Deal. Right. The 1,000-meter stare creeps back into Glory's eyes. A moment later, she's locked away in her own head again, reliving memories that she had long since filed away. So a few days after my 14th birthday, I began to express, magically. You're magically active? I was. She gestures at her cyberware-riddled body. Not anymore. There's another long pause, and Glory becomes more animated. Anyway, I turned 14. I awakened. I don't even remember how my parents found out about it anymore. I think my dad caught me playing with a tiny city spirit that I coaxed out of a pile of garbage, something like that. With everything that happened afterwards, those days are kind of a blur. What I do remember is that my father's response to the revelation that his little girl was a witch, Hexie, which I believe is the German word for witch, he bit the living shit out of me with his fists, and then his belt, and then a claw hammer that he grabbed out of his toolbox. All the while, my mother was screaming and flailing at him. She took a couple of kicks with a hammer, or licks with a hammer, too. The second option, I'd very much like to murder your father. I wonder if that's what she did. But the first line over here, it's a miracle that you survived, is an interesting... Why would I know that is a miracle? I mean, obviously she was brutalized. Let's go with that. I mean, yeah, I should take... yeah. People come back from, like, you read and hear stories of people who were, what's the word? What's the word for this? You know, they were attacked. They were attacked. And people have the wildest stories about the trauma that they go through, and they still survive. They manage to survive. The hardest, probably, I don't want to speak for Glory's story here because she hasn't told it yet. But a lot of the times, the real miracle isn't the surviving of the assault. It's the survival of the trauma that you stick with after, and just being able to survive what probably would be a homelessness situation and stuff like that. That's the real stories of endurement, and that's the real miracles, honestly. It's that survival rather than the survival of the assault. And people, like, from my experience reading stories about this sort of life, that is what people, like, victims and survivors, that's what they're also, like, people tend to be aware that their survival is more hinged on the survival day-to-day than it is of the initial, or at least the first instances of being abused. Let's go with the first one, though. It's a miracle that you survived. I'm just lucky, I guess. So finally, after what felt like an hour, Dad stopped tuning me up with a hammer. I had broken ribs, a busted arm, I couldn't see out of my left eye, and my entire right side was covered with one giant bruise. I was bleeding all over the place, making a real mess of the carpet. The old bastard spat on me, his bleeding, crying daughter. He spat on me and told me that I was des Teufels Hure, the devil's whore. Then he kicked me out of the house. As I was crawling away, my father told me that if he or any of his Cruz Ritter brothers ever saw me again, they'd treat me, quote, as the Berlin chapter treats the enemies of God, unquote. If you're not familiar with how the Cruz Ritters were in Berlin deal with heretics, it's decidedly less pretty than what my dad and his buddies did to their victims. I got the hint, and the next morning I hitched a ride out of Stuttgart. You are a human girl, presumably with an ID. Why didn't you go to a hospital? Oh, I did, but not in Stuttgart. If I went to a local hospital with the kind of injuries that my dad gave me, there'd be questions, and I couldn't afford to stay in town any longer than I had to. Even if my dad wound up getting arrested for beating me, the rest of the local Cruz Ritters would have found me, and I'd have wound up skinned alive and thrown into the Neckar, actually, a river. I wound up in Tübingen. I figured it'd be a safe enough place to find medical attention and maybe to call home. It's not far from Stuttgart, but it has a huge student community that I figured I could blend into, and the university there was a decent magic, or has a decent magic department. My ride dropped me off at the university hospital, and they patched me up pretty good. Had some questions for me about how I got so beaten up, but I lied and told them that I'd been mugged, which played nicely into my complete lack of cash, credit, and identification. She pauses for a moment and looks down at the floor and then fixes her eyes on you. She's visibly tense. Yes, she would be. We're gonna fast forward through the next few years, she says. I was a kid on the street. I got by as best I could, doing whatever I had to do. The rest we can leave up to your imagination. Good? Of course. I only need to hear what you're comfortable talking about. Nothing more. Good. Glory's clenched jaw relaxes somewhat, and the tension drains out of her shoulders. Thanks. So anyway, I lived on the street for a few years. Got used to being hungry all the time. Got used to getting rained on. Got by. I was painfully aware that I had magical talents, but without any kind of training or guidance, I didn't really know how to use or develop them. Truth be told, they scared me, so I more or less ignored them. So it just sort of went like that until a few days after my 17th birthday. And then I met Marta, and everything changed. Marta was a sweet girl. At first, I took her for a street kid, like me. Her clothes were a little ratty, and she seemed comfortable being near me, but she also looked well-fed and happy, and those were two things that I hadn't been in years. We started hanging out, and before I knew what was happening, I was in love. There was a genuine attraction between Marta and me, and I think... But I also think that a lot of my affection for her came from the fact that she was the first person in years to give a damn about me. She cared, and I loved her for that. She pauses and looks flustered, her composure cracked. Keep going, Glory. She stares at you for a beat and then nods. A few ragged breaths later, she continues. Marta told me about a place where she had been hanging out. She invited me to join her there. It was called the Feuerstelle, the fireplace, and it was sort of a commune for the dispossessed youth. It turns out that a lot of the street kids I'd known over the years had moved there. The way that they disappeared, I'd assumed that they had been kidnapped or killed, or had gone back to their parents, but there they were. I remember being kind of angry about it. Like, how did everybody get the memo about this but me? Marta calmed me down. She was good at helping me work through my feelings. And I wound up following her to the Feuerstelle. To a street kid, it was basically paradise. The owner, a guy named Harrow, had set up this little farm just outside Tübingen in the Skombook forest. The Skombook is officially a nature park, but not many people go there nowadays. Too much fear of paranormal animals, I guess. Anyway, park or not, it was plenty big enough for us to hide in. It was also safe and pretty, and the farm was well stocked with food. Most importantly, Feuerstelle gave us a sense of community and stability that we'd never had on the street, and we loved Harrow for that. He became like a surrogate father to us. She pauses again, and you recognize the distinctive flush in her cheeks. She seems to have come out of her reverie once again. She says, "That's enough for now. I need to process all of this. I don't want to continue forward until I've had the chance to do that." I know that this all happened years ago, but I guess it's still pretty raw to me. So I'm gonna ask you to give me some space for a while. She turns away, and the frost begins to creep back into her voice. We can pick it back up later. We can indeed. We've got a job to prepare for, Edie. I don't have any more time to talk. Hit me up after the run if you like. But for now, I need some space. I kind of wanted to ask the other thing. We have a quick save right from before. There was another line that she had. Oh, does this loading screen take time? Or did the game crash? No, it doesn't. The cruise bazaar insulated from the... Yeah, this is fine. I think. Yeah, I think she had another line, and I specifically chose that. I don't know why I chose that, to be honest. Let's find out. There we go. So, yeah, I chose that. How are you doing? Any thoughts on the last run? There it is. Are you ready to tell me about the chrome you're sporting? It's getting there, Edie, but you'll have to give me some time. The answers will come when they do. and warming up to me. Okay, so yeah, basically that was the only line that was missing. So I'm gonna do this dialogue tree again, and we're gonna continue talking to the rest of the folks in the next episode. For right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Shadowrun Dragonfall. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video if you want to see the next episode come out sooner rather than later. But above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye bye.